Okay, you gotta read books. Amazing books. You know, Srila Prabhupada said, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said that if there were only 3 books in the world, they would be Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. And if there are only two important books in the world, they would be Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. And if there's only one book in the world, it should be what? None of you read it.
Bhakti in action.
Huh?
Chaitanya Charitamrita is a bhakti in action.
Bhakti in action. That's a good word for me. So, yeah, we're reading from that today. So I don't know if you heard it on your phone. Chapter 9. It's a very important verse. Everyone should know this verse. This is text number 36. Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 9, text number 36.
Adilila, Madhilila, Anshali.
Okay. Ata eva ami agya dila sabakare yamantam phala deha yare tare.
Adilila, Madhilila, Antilila.
Huh?
Adilila, Madhilila, Antilila.
Adilila.
Yeah, that's
chapter 9, text number 36. Oh, wait for her to find it. Adi 9, 36. Important verse, everybody should know. Found it? Everybody got it? Okay, you can repeat after me. Ata eva ame agya tilan sabakare yahantan prema phala deha yaratare Ata eva ame agya tilan sabakare yahantan prema phala deha yaratare Ata eva ame agya dilan tabakare Yahantahan prema pala deha yaritare Somebody else?
Ata eva ami ajna dilun sabakare Yahantahan prema phala deha yaritare
Ata eva ami agna dilun sabakare Yahan tahan prema phala deha yaritare
অতএব আমি আজ্ঞা দিলু সবাকারে যাহা তাহা প্রেম ফল দেহ জানে তারে
Ladies, any ladies?
Ataiva ami agya dilu sabakare Yaha taha prema phala deha yaritare Ataiva ami agya dilu sabakare Jaha taha prema phala deha yaritare
Okay. Please repeat word for word. Atayeva. Therefore. Ami. I. Agya. Order. Dilan. Give. Sabakare. To everyone. Yahan. Wherever. Tahan. Everywhere. Prema phala. The fruit of love of Godhead. Deha. Distribute. Yare. Anyone. Tare. Everyone. Translation. Therefore, I order every man and woman within this universe to accept this Krishna consciousness movement and distribute it everywhere. Please repeat. Therefore, I order. Okay. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this connection there is a song sung by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Eneche Asori Maya Nisi Baralagi, Harinam Mahamantra Lao Timimagi. Baka to be known of Prabhu Charan Padiya, say Harinam Mantra La Ila Magia. The Sankirtan movement has been introduced by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just to dispel the illusion of Maya, by which everyone in this material world thinks himself to be a product of matter and therefore to have many duties pertaining to the body. Actually, the living entity is not his material body, he is a spirit soul. He has a spiritual need to be eternally blissful and full of knowledge. But unfortunately, he identifies himself with the body, sometimes as a human being, sometimes as an animal, sometimes as a tree, sometimes an aquatic, sometimes a demigod, and so on. Thus, with each change of body, he develops a different type of consciousness with different types of activities, and thus becomes increasingly entangled in material existence, transmigrating perpetually from one body to another. Under the spell of Maya or illusion, he does not consider the past or future, but is simply satisfied with the short lifespan that he has gotten for the present. To eradicate this illusion, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has brought the Sankirtan movement, and he therefore requests everyone to accept and distribute it. A person who is actually a follower of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur must immediately accept the request of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by offering respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet, and thus beg from him the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. If one is fortunate enough to beg from the Lord and this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, his life is successful. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I'm going to read one more. I am the next verse is text 37. I am the only gardener. If I do not distribute these fruits, what shall I do with them? How many fruits can I alone eat? And let me read the purport. It's very important. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu produced so many fruits of devotional service that they must be distributed all over the world. Otherwise, how could he alone relish and taste each and every fruit? The original reason that Lord Sri Krishna descended as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was to understand Srimati Radharani's love for Krishna and to taste that love. The fruits of the tree of devotional service were innumerable, and therefore he wanted to distribute them unrestrictedly to everyone. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore writes, and this is an extremely important verse, Anapata chiram chira karunaya patano kalo samapayatam anuttajvala rasam svabhakti shriyam Hare Purata Sundara Duty Kadamba Sandipita Sada Hridaya Kandare Spuritu Vasachi Nandana. Anyone know where that's from? Who wrote it? It's in the Ujjvala Nilamani. No, it's not. It's in the Vidagdha Madhava. Vidagdha Madhava. So, very important verse. There were many previous incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but none was so generous, kind, and magnanimous as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. For he distributed the most confidential aspect of devotional service, namely the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna. Therefore, Sri Rupa Goswami Prabhupada desires that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu live perpetually in the hearts of all devotees, for thus they can understand and relish the loving affairs of Srimati Radharani and Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, these very important instruction about preaching that Lord Chaitanya orders everybody in the universe to preach. And of course, Krishna himself, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when he's in the forest there with Balaram, and he sees the trees that are bowing down, laden with fruit. Actually, nature is so wonderful. I have fruit trees. I have a farm. And so the trees, they really do bow down, laden with fruit. And they're touching the ground. They have so much fruit on them. So this is the way Krishna designed this world, is that nature is very munificent, very generous. And he expects everybody to be like this. Everybody should be generous. Everybody should offer everything to others. And so Krishna says, Etavan janmasapalyam dehishu ihitahinam prane ata dhyavacha sadashriyanam sada.
Shri Acharanam Sada.
How is it?
Shri Acharanam Sada.
You know it, this guy's smart. You Bengali or what? Gujarati.
She knows how Punjabi.
Huh?
She knows how
She does? What's the last line again?
एतवा जन्म साफल्यं विना मिह देहिषु
Dhyavacha.
प्राणाचरणं सदा श्रेय आचरणं सदा.
That's what I said. Right, I'm surprised. Okay, she's clever. Anyway, so this is a very important verse. Krishna's saying, it is a duty of all human beings to work for the benefit of others with their wealth, with their words, with their life, with their body, and with their breath. So this is a duty of all human beings. There's another verse in the 11th canto. Krishna says, Ahimsa Satya Mastayam Akama Krodalobita. I don't know the rest of it, but at least I know 2 lines. So he says, it's 11th canto. How many of you read 11th canto? 11th canto is amazing. You have to read the 11th canto. Krishna says, because he's speaking to Uddhava, he says, it is the duty of all human beings to be himsa, non-violent, satyam, truthful, and clean, satyam, akama, without material desires, and to work for the benefit of others. So, as a human being, Krishna expects us to be actually compassionate. And so this is one of the qualities of a devotee. This is actually the hallmark of a devotee, that we have to try to be compassionate even though we might not feel deeply for the suffering of other people. But we should understand that, devotees are very fortunate. We have so much to be thankful for, that we know about Krishna. And so we can see from the life of Srila Prabhupada how devotees can change the world. Recently I was in India, and I was just amazed at how Krishna consciousness is really spreading so fast, and how Srila Prabhupada really reinvented Vedic culture. I've been a devotee since 1974, and I was always grateful to Srila Prabhupada because he changed my life and gave me shelter. But I didn't really understand how great he was, and I appreciate him more and more, because Srila Prabhupada has really changed the world. He's changed India so much. And you know what? He did it all with Western people. Because every single one of the temples, well, the main temples, the original temples, was Mumbai, Vrindavan, and Mayapur, and Hyderabad. Those temples, they were all designed by Surabi Alapalyantam Swami. He was Dutch. And the original people that managed all those temples, Mumbai, Vrindavan, Mayapur, they're all Western people, American and British. So Srila Prabhupada, he started with nothing, practically, and he showed how one should have faith in Krishna and preach, and the result will come. Because he was struggling in Vrindavan so much. In Delhi, so hard. He was trying to sell Back to Godhead magazine. He had no money. He couldn't even get money to get the paper. He couldn't get paper because there was a war. Maybe you know the history. There was a war at the time, Second World War, and Japan was bombing India. And so the government, the British government actually, they were trying to get soldiers to fight against the Japanese and against, that alliance. And so they sent the farmers up to fight. So there was a shortage of food, so everything became very expensive. But Prabhupada said that, he couldn't get paper, and that the paper was to be used for books. They wanted to use the resources for building bombs to fight the war. But Prabhupada said that actually the paper should be used for books to fight against Maya. But he was struggling so much, he couldn't get paper. He was attacked by a cow. And, you would think, you'd think Krishna would protect him. That why would Krishna allow him to be attacked by a cow? This doesn't make sense. He's a pure devotee and all that. So then he was relating this to his disciples in America a little bit when he was successful here. And he had disciples, and he was just saying how you never know how things are going to change. That he had been struggling so much, and now here he was in America. He had so many disciples and so many sons and daughters and mothers and fathers. So Prabhupada showed that, by following the order of Lord Chaitanya, that Lord Chaitanya ordered every one of us to preach, that he got such a huge result. So in India, of course, most of you know, but so many temples, and the temples are amazing. If you look at the modern temples that ISKCON is building, I guess a lot of you have been there, but there are so many in Delhi. There's one in Rohini. Anyone to been to that one in Rohini?
Yeah.
That's an amazing temple. It's a beautiful temple, and most beautiful temple room in ISKCON, probably, I think. It's an amazing building. And of course, at the Kumbh Mela, ISKCON, I was there at the Kumbh Mela, and they have also a beautiful new temple in Prayagraj. Anyone been there? So Prayagraj is Allahabad. Of course, the Muslims, they conquered India, the British conquered India. I think the Indians must have done something wrong. Because they were subdued, put down so much by the Muslims. I think they started worshipping demigods or something. I don't know. But in Prayagraj, Prabhupada lived in Prayagraj, Allahabad. That's where he had his business. He lived there for 11 or 12 years. And now, they have a nice temple there because Prayagraj is the confluence of the Ganges, the Saraswati, and the Jamuna. It's a very important place. It's where Lord Chaitanya instructed Rupa Goswami. So there they have a very nice temple president. His name is Achyuta Mohan. Anyone know Achyuta Mohan? He's a genius guy. He went to IIT. He won a gold medal from the government. He's a super intelligent person. So this is the kind of people that ISKCON is attracting now. Whereas when Prabhupada was there, he couldn't attract anybody. So it was a real struggle. And then, because the British had really dumbed down the Indians. The British had made the Indians think that Vedic culture was backward. And of course, the first Prime Minister of India Jawaharlal Nehru. So his goal was to bring India into the 20th century at the time. And, so India lost their culture, you could say, but it wasn't lost. It was only covered over. Because everywhere you go, where there's Indian people, and especially Gujaratis are everywhere to make money. Fortunately, they went to East Africa, to Kenya and Uganda. And so when those governments, Idi Amin, he was actually a cannibal. He ate human beings. Idi Amin. Then there was Kenyatta. He was in Kenya. So they kicked the Indians out of East Africa. Generally, the Indians are good at making money, as you know. Even in South Africa, there's a lot of jealousy because Indians are, all over the world, Indians are the highest earning minority group above the Jews. But those Indians that were kicked out of East Africa, mainly Gujaratis, they came to England. The British were very lucky because they got the Indians. The French, they got another religious group from Africa, which is swarming all over Paris. But the British, because they're given British passports to these Indians, then they came to the UK. I'm from the UK originally. And so these devotees, or the children of these people came, they became devotees. And they became really very good devotees. And they actually, Bhaktivedanta Manor, I don't know, anyone been to Bhaktivedanta Manor? So that's the famous historic place that Srila Prabhupada, that was donated to Srila Prabhupada by George Harrison of the Beatles, Bhaktivedanta Manor. It's a beautiful place. And there was a huge problem because the residents of the very affluent, wealthy village right next to Bhaktivedanta Manor, they didn't like all the swarms of Hindus coming to visit the temple and driving through the beautiful, picturesque little village. So there was a huge kerfuffle, if you know what that means. Unusual word, but there was a huge chaos because they didn't want the Indians to drive through their village. So then they had to, there was a huge fight in the court and everything else about, because they wanted to close down the manor. They wanted to close it down totally. There was a huge fight. So then they decided, they would have a protest. So 30,000 Indians went on protest to the Houses of Parliament. It was a huge thing. And Sunil Gavaskar, I guess he's not so famous anymore. You heard of Sunil Gavaskar? He's a famous cricketer. Anyway, he led the protest, he led the march. And so they were able to save the manor. And because there was one devotee, Kandari, he's actually a very good devotee, Kandari Prabhu. But he was also inspiring these young, mainly Gujaratis, to protest. And so they saved the manor, and now, they expanded the manor. The manor is much nicer than it was when Prabhupada was here. So it's very wonderful that all the temples that I went to that Prabhupada had first established, like in Mumbai, Juhu, and Bhaktivedanta Manor, of course, they have improved so much. They're so much nicer than they were. And so Prabhupada, this devotee was saying in Prayagraj, Achyuta Mohan, oh my God, he's Gujarati, Paramakaruna. So this devotee in Prayagraj, he's a very smart person. He was telling me about his background. he said he came from a very aristocratic family, and they never would eat anything that they didn't produce on their farm, because they had a farm. I'll call you back, I'm giving class right now. So he had this farm, the family, and they were very Paka Brahmins. So he would have to ask his mother if he could eat. Can I eat now, mother? So she said, have you fed the cows first? And then he'd go feed the cows, and then he would say, can I eat now? And she would say, no, you have to go feed the dogs, the birds. And then he would come back and say, now no, you have to go feed the birds. So like that, he came from this kind of family that very generous and very pure family. And he said that if he would never go out to eat anywhere else. He didn't get the message. So he said that if he went out, if he had to go out for some social engagement, like somebody's wedding or something, when he came back, he would have to undress and take a bath and put on clean clothes. So they're very clean, very pure. So this Vedic culture is such an important culture. And of course, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Raja Vijja Rajagurum Pavitramidamuttamam Prataksha Bhagamam Dhanam Susukum Guttamabhiyam. This knowledge is the king of education, it's the most secret of all secrets, it's the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it's the perfection of religion. So it really is the perfection of religion. There's no other culture really than Vedic culture. If you look at British culture, it's all about, pride and we're better. But even if there was something good, it's not lasting. Because if you go to these beautiful cathedrals, the British built beautiful cathedrals, amazing buildings, but nobody goes to church anymore. They're all empty. Canterbury Cathedral, now they just chose a woman to be the Archbishop of Canterbury. Fine. But France, beautiful cathedrals, nobody goes. Holland, they used to send the Dutch church used to so many missionaries they would send everywhere. Practically everybody in Holland is an atheist, 99%. But we know that in India, so many temples, they're overflowing with people, and they have stampedes and people who get trampled to death. But the point is, this knowledge, this religion is so important. And, we have a duty to share it with people. And by doing that, we become fortunate. And so there's a verse I read in the second verse, Anapatachiramchirat Kuruna Patanakala. You know that one? You don't know that one. That's good. It's a very important verse. It means that this is Rupa Goswami. So Rupa Goswami is the leader of ISKCON, really. Sri Chaitanya Manobhastam Stapitam Yenaputale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Tadati Swapadantikam. So in this verse, which was glorified by Lord Chaitanya, because Rupa Goswami wrote this verse, because he was in a place called Satyabhamapur, and he had a dream. And Satyabhama came to him in his dream. Now Satyabhama is actually who? Radharani. She's Radharani. And Rukmini is Chandravati. So Satyabhama came to him in his dream. And she said, I want you to write a drama about Krishna in Vrindavan, Krishna in Dwarka, but don't try to take Krishna out of Vrindavan, because he doesn't leave Vrindavan. Anyway, he wrote this verse, which means, may Chaitanya Mahaprabhu be seated in the innermost recess of your heart, resplendent with the radiant of molten gold. He has come to give what no other incarnation ever gave before, which is Krishna Prema, Madhurya Rasa, the love experienced between the Gopas and Krishna. The Lord Chaitanya came to give this. But this is only available to people who understand Lord Chaitanya's mood. So Lord Chaitanya's mood is to save the most fallen. And because, you know, we have so many beautiful books, Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. But Prabhupada, he also said that, he said in the beginning, people are too fallen, especially, you know, Western people influenced by the West, they're too fallen. So they have to chant Nitai Gauranga. They have to chant the name of Nitai and Lord Chaitanya. And then when they become purified, then they will be qualified to understand these pastimes. So you'll know you're actually getting somewhere when you're eager to read the books by the Goswamis. Not just Chaitanya Charitamrita, of course. You know, we have to read all these books. Prabhupada said, if you don't read all my books, then you'll bloop. You'll give up Krishna consciousness. He said, is that scary? You should be afraid of that happening. To give up Krishna consciousness would be the biggest disaster. But he said, if you don't read all my books, then you'll become weak, just like somebody becomes weak if they don't get enough grains to eat. So similarly, if you don't read all my books, you'll become weak and you'll give up Krishna consciousness. But there is a caveat, because in the Srimad Bhagavatam it says, how did it go? Oh, you would notice one. I've forgotten it too. Yanastaya naro raja na prameja na kaita davannavili na metbanetre naskale na patat iha. It says, Krishna says, that if one accepts the path of devotional service, even when running with his eyes closed, he will never trip or fall. So running with the eyes closed means that because we see through the eyes of the scripture, but even if you don't know the scripture, you will be successful in life. But of course, we need Brahmins. Prabhupada wanted to create a class of Brahmins. And therefore, Brahmins, they have to be very learned. We have to study the books. Prabhupada said we should learn verses just like lawyers, they know the law books. So they can defend a client by citing some previous case which is similar to theirs. So they have to study a lot. So similarly, devotees, they have to be very, ideally, if we want to fulfill Prabhupada's idea, Varnashram, Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras. Prabhupada was, he was so keen to establish Varnashram that he risked his life. At the very end of his life, the last time I saw Prabhupada was at Bhaktivedanta Manor in 1977. And, he was coming to America to show us how to live simply off the land, actually. That's what he said. And some of his close associates, like Adikarta Prabhu, he was his nurse in the last few months of his life. He said that Prabhupada said that I've only completed 50% of my mission. So Prabhupada came to London, and he was very sick. He couldn't speak or anything. He was extremely thin, and so that was a very important part of his mission, to establish Varnashram. But it's not just Brahmins and Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras and cows, but it's actually qualified devotees who actually inspire others to fulfill this most important aspect of Krishna consciousness. And so in the Srimad Bhagavatam there's another verse where Krishna has been attacked by the cart demon. So the cart demon comes to send all these demons to try to kill Krishna. So the cart demon couldn't kill Krishna. Krishna kicked it to pieces, but Mother Yashoda, she was very concerned about all these demons that are coming to attack Krishna. So she said, we need to get the blessings of the Brahmins, because if we get the blessings of the Brahmins, who are not disturbed by the opulence of others, who are, manifest brahminical qualities like mercy, if we get their blessings, then Krishna will be safe. So, Yesuryam Rita Dambasha Himsamana, can't remember the whole verse. Yesuryam Rita Dambasha. It's a very nice verse. This is one of the last purports Prabhupada wrote, actually, before he passed away, 10th canto. So he said, in the purport, he said that actually I want to create a class of Brahmins, because if we get if the Brahmins bless the world, then the world will become very nice. Because this world can be very nice. The modern lifestyle is not very nice. It's hellish. But actually, the way Krishna created the world, it's very beautiful. Nature is incredibly intelligent. Nature, like I was saying about my fruit trees, because I have some fruit trees, that the way fruit works is that you can't pluck the fruit off the tree if it's not ripe. But it doesn't get ripe all at the same time, because if it got ripe all at the same time, you couldn't eat it all at once. So therefore it gets ripe in stages. It's so clever. Everything's so amazing. And then you have, I don't think you can grow oranges up here or lemons, but Prabhupada said anywhere without palm trees is uncivilized. But the orange blossom, in the spring, all the fruit trees, they have a blossom. I don't know, I'm from London, I never really knew much about this, but since I got home, I've seen how nature works, and it's just inconceivably nice that the blossom comes, and what comes next? On each blossom, there's a little bud. And each blossom is incredibly beautifully designed. Like, I have persimmons. Persimmons have a beautiful blossom, and then the little bud comes. So, like the lemon blossom, the orange blossom, you can never manufacture any kind of scent like that. Only nature can produce a scent like that. But we've become indoctrinated into this Western way of life. And it's killing people, literally killing people. It's just not the way people are supposed to live. Even most of you Indian people here, if you go back a couple of generations, your family lived on the farm. They had cows, they milked the cows, and They were very healthy. They never had, actually, women in India didn't have breast cancer until they gave up having as many children. So one of Prabhupada's goals is to take us back to a more natural way of life, but we do have to show by example. Well, that's why, I have a farm. And cow protection is very important. But, this is kind of a little bit of impossible dream right now. But in the meantime, we have to preach. Otherwise, we will never understand this reason why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu really appeared. That for us to actually become interested in Krishna's loving affairs with the gopis, this is the ultimate goal. And Prabhupada didn't talk about it that much because people were not qualified, but actually after some time, Srila Bhakti said, now Prabhupada didn't have any disciples who'd been around for 15 or 20 years. None of them. Because the first disciple maybe joined 1965, 66, maybe 12 years, not 15 or 20. But Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta, he said that after 15, 20 years, it shouldn't just be anartha nivritti, it should be artha pravritti, which means not just cleansing the heart, because cleansing the heart is anartha nivritti. And this is very, very important. And you have to have good sadhana. You have to chant your japa every day, 16 rounds a day. You have to get up early. So when the heart is sufficiently purified, artha pravritti means to have an obsession, practically, for hearing about the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. But it can't be premature. But you should hear about them anyway. Because there's also a famous verse, Kriditam Brajabadu Adam Chavishnam, Shridam Vatana Shunayat Atabanayadya. You know that one? She doesn't know them. Important verse. That if one hears about Krishna's playful activities with the gopis, then automatically any lusty desires we have will gradually go away. Even if you have those desires, just by hearing about Krishna's pastimes, they go away. Even in the Gita Govinda, of course, we've heard that we shouldn't read Gita Govinda. I haven't read it, but I noticed there was one verse in there. Jayadev Goswami, he says that may people that read this beautiful poem, because he knows he's a great poet, he's not falsely humble. May people who read this beautiful poem, may any lust in their heart, just by reading this book, may it go away. So, we're trying to spread Krishna consciousness. And we feel sorry for people in this material world because this material world is a very difficult place, full of problems, especially nowadays. So we should feel compassion for people. And naturally, if we're practicing Krishna consciousness properly, we will feel relief, we'll feel safe, we'll feel so much gratitude to Srila Prabhupada and to the acharyas who brought this knowledge. So like Prabhupada said, he said that it's impossible to repay me for what I've given you. But if you try to preach vigorously like me, then you can try. So that's what we should do. Not everybody's good at speaking or selling books or whatever, but we can all do something. And Prabhupada said that even cleaning the floor of the temple is the same as being a pujari. So anything we do, but we should be very enthusiastic to see Krishna consciousness, specifically ISKCON. And Prabhupada wanted to emphasize so much that ISKCON is his body, and ISKCON is the movement that Lord Chaitanya has invested the potency to change the world. There are other Gaudiya movements, but if we see the effect that ISKCON specifically is having, especially in India, you know, like Prabhupada at the Kumbh Mela, as you know, all these big acharyas and big swamis got together, they conferred on Prabhupada the title of Vishva Guru. Means the Guru of the universe. Prabhupada is such an amazing person. So anyway, we're all fortunate, and we should, but we have to try to understand the message, read the books, be very scrupulous about chanting our 16 rounds nicely, and then trying to give it to other people. And then we will eventually be able to understand the internal reason why Lord Chaitanya appeared, which is, as Prabhupada said, I've come to teach you how to dance with Krishna. Hare Krishna. Is that finished now? Right? Thank you.
Yes, Adikarta Prabhu ki.
Jai.
What's next?
We can move on to the next part of the program, Arati. Arati already started. You can leave the people. So devotees will request for the chairs outside and the mats in the corner. You need to be stayed up.